everyone, and welcome back to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel. Today, we're doing another edition of the AFL previews for 2023. Today, we are taking on the GWS Giants. I'm joined by three esteemed journalists from the Inner Sanctum. I'm talking Jacko. Jacko, welcome to the Giants preview.
Anthony, thanks for having me, mate.
Thomas Grattan, welcome to the Giants preview.
Well, good to be here.
And the one and only Jared Thomas. How are you, mate?
Good. It's good to be here talking about the Giants.
Yeah, it's good fun. We're looking forward to talking about what could be a big year for GWS this year. A lot of key ins and outs throughout the off season. It's been a pretty big off season, but I'll get some thoughts from you three firstly before we dive in. Thomas, I'll start with you, sir. What did you make of the off season for the Giants?
It's been a very interesting off season for the Giants. There's massive turnover with Hopper and Taranto departing. We've had Adam Kingsley appointed as a senior coach. So there's definitely a real feeling of a new beginning for the Giants here.
JT, how have you found, especially with the adjustment of Adam Kingsley, as mentioned, how have you found the Giants? Well, I will say attitude so far, because I think it's been nothing but positive.
Yeah, well, some things sort of came out in the last week or so about how the Giants have been doing their preseason, and it seems like Adam Kingsley's kind of doing some very different things down there. He is encouraging people to bring things to training and tell them things. That's how we found out about the classic Jason Gilbey story, which is probably the best thing I've heard in a long time coming out of the AFL. So I think it's really interesting. I think it's going to sort of set him apart from a lot of the other sides.
Yeah, and Jacko, I really feel like this could be a good stepping stone for GWS this year. Would you change your diet with milks purely instead of water?
Tell you what, mate, there's no danger of him breaking any bones this season. He's going to be off the injury list. There's going to be no hard bone injuries there, mate. I'm pretty confident.
But all honestly, though, how would you find GWS's pre-season to date, personally?
Look, it's a strip it back to the bones rebuild, isn't it? They've sort of shipped the people out. They had a season down the bottom, and rather than try and be, mediocre and deal with what they've got, they've just stripped it back and, build it from the ground up, which is probably, I think, the best thing they could have done since that 2019 grand final. And
Grattan, I feel like the main focus points have been sort of adapted into the new culture of GWS. What's been some things from 2022 you feel that GWS need to make sure they get right this year?
Well, I think Harry Himmelberg needs a set position, because as we saw, he was basically playing everywhere last year. He was up forward, he was down back, he was in the midfield. I think he even had a stint in a ruck as well. And I think him really getting given a set role and really nailing it will be perfect for the Giants going forward.
And JT, I feel like the experience in GWS's realm will actually help. You look at clubs like North Melbourne, Gold Coast haven't had that esteemed experience to carry them through. But players like Whitfield, Kelly, those players that are going to be really strong with their experience are going to really help with this group rebuild this year.
Yeah, I think they're probably, the most important players, if not in this team, definitely in the league in terms of where the team's going to go from now on. I think Canelio, we know, has had some troubles in the last few years getting his form right. Whitfield last year was down on form as well. There's the sort of players that have to work harder to bring themselves back into it and actually, lead the new team that's coming up. We've seen Aaron Cadman come in, who's obviously got a lot of potential and a lot of talent. So they need sort of those experienced players to really step up, and lead them through, because they lost a few as well with Taranto and Hopper going out, so they need that experience to really step up this year.
Jacko, some trades that did occur, obviously a lot left, and only the one came in. Toby Bedford from Melbourne joining the club. Sort of like Tanner Broonlee, Bobby Hill, we mentioned Taranto and Hopper. Matt DeBoer's obviously retired. There's been a lot of key listings on that list that have left. Do you feel that it's an opportunity for GWS, or do you really feel like they're set in for a good, strong rebuild over the next 3, 4, 5 years?
I think it's going to be more of a rebuild than an opportunity to bounce back up, but I don't think it's going to be too long of one. You saw they brought in Toby Bedford, who I really liked the look of at Melbourne. He was used as more of a sub and an impact player. But I feel like with Bobby Hill going out, they were confident making that trade because they knew they had Bedford coming in to slot in that position. Tanner Bruin going out, obviously disappointing, but you felt like that was going to happen. You remember seeing his face on draft day. He didn't look too keen. With the draftees they brought in a lot of good names. They had, 4 picks inside 22. So I feel like they're really sort of deciding to go back to the draft and rebuild via that route.
And JT, I feel like the leaving of Tim Taranto especially and Hopper obviously are going to leave massive holes in the midfield this year. Do you feel like that they have what it takes to replace those names?
Well, they always sort of had a bit of a stacked midfield at times, when they sort of had people rotating through. But I think in situations like this is where Canelio is going to come back to the midfield. He started playing forward a little bit in the last few years. I think he'll kind of have a lot more the time in the middle there. Josh Kelly is going to have a lot of the ball. I think he's going to have a really, really big year because there's not a lot around that are going to do it. They get a lot of the touches that he can. And he's got those players that really have to sort of work in. But losing Taranto especially is one that it can be really, really tough for them to fill that hole. And it's not going to happen straight away, as we know, but it also gives them a chance to develop players in the midfield that were sort of on the outer when they had the talent in there, and now they'll sort of get that pick up.
Yep. Grattan, do you feel like with those types of players, but they still obviously have good caliber? I'm talking down back, you got your Sam Taylor. Phil Davis, I'm pretty sure, is going to come back this year at some stage. Do you feel as though they still have those pillars in their team that can hold them steady? It's not going to be one of those big rebuilds where they're blown out of the water every single week and they're going to be having those smashings and having those really bad weeks. Do you feel like they have pillars to hold them instead enough so they can actually have a solid improvement and not get smashed every single week?
Yeah, I definitely agree that they still have those key pillars. For starters, Phil Davis, Cullen Ward, Toby Green, Canelio are all still there from the inaugural GWS season of 2012, and these are the guys that they've looked to in the past to lead, with Davis and Ward coming from other clubs to join the Giants back in 2012, and even though they are coming down to the tail end of their careers respectively, and Phil Davis is unfortunately Father Time seems to be catching up with him, I still believe that a fully fit Phil Davis and Cullen Ward alongside the other two mentioned will be invaluable to the Giants this year, and especially throughout this rebuild.
Jacko, do you feel like with the draft hand they got 5 picks inside the top 40, obviously picked 1 with Aaron Cadman, they have had serious talent come through the system over the last few years. Did they get it right?
Look, by all looks, it looks like they did. Aaron Cadman was, except for Will Ashcroft as well, was always going to Brisbane. Aaron Cadman was the second best player in this draft, compared to Jeremy Cameron, who I thought was the best player in the competition last season. Cadman, averaged 3 goals and 17 possessions in 12 games last year with the Greater Western Valley Rebels. He's a star to give it a pick 1, and he's someone who I think will make an instant impact. And then at pick 16, Harry Roaston, who the Swans bidded on. The old draft guru, Kinney Beatson, found something in him. So if he's seen something, then who am I to go against? Compared to, Josh Kennedy, who's just retired from the Swans, he's someone who could very well fill those midfield gaps that we're talking about.
Definitely. And I think overall, JT, what they've done this off-season, I think, is probably I don't know how you put it, in a way where they've got all bases ticked. Whether or not they get it right, you'll never truly know until after the first 12 months. But I feel like they're in a position where they could launch to have a positive first year in a rebuild.
I think they know exactly what they're trying to do. They understand that, with the losses they've had in Taranto and Hopper, they know they aren't going to be anywhere near as good as they were over the last few years. And obviously they had a really tough year last year anyway. So I think they're well aware that this is the year to really develop their players. And they're going to use that. And Adam Kingsley's going to use that. He knows that as well. So I think it's going to be really positive for them. And like you said before, they're not going to get smashed every week. They've got enough players in all assets of the ground, in all aspects. They've got enough players that can hold them steady. They're going to win games no matter what. They just probably won't win as many as they, are usually used to. But they're not going to get blown out. But it'll be a positive first year for them.
Well, looking at what they've done this off-season, I think they've only had 2 main off-season stories come out, and one of them is obviously Adam Kingsley. It was a late coaching signing, but probably I think it's similar to when Port got Ken Hinkley, not the top man, but the right man, essentially. Could be on the cards, but also we found out as well this week about drinking milk is better than drinking water. So a couple of off-season news, but I'll go back to Adam Kingsley. I'll get thoughts from each of you before we move in to some key questions. Jack, I'll start with you. What did you make of the appointment of Adam Kingsley to GWS?
I really like it. I think it's the case of, every club needed to do their due diligence last season to get Clarko. If he's on the table, you have to go for him. But in the case of the Giants, I think, second best option. Adam Kingsley is a great signing for this club. He's one of those assistant coaches who's been around the league. He knows what he's doing. He's been at such strong clubs, like, he's been at Richmond through that successful period. He knows what's required. He's been through a system that I think he's going to implement at the Giants, which is not a midfield dominant system, but a team system. So I think it's exactly what they need to get everyone on the same side and sort of bring this team through this tough period.
And Grattan, do you feel like it was something based on experience as an assistant coach for GWS? Obviously, with Alistair Clarkson, every club would have looked at it, no matter what position you're in. Do you feel like, based on experience, his time at Richmond was obviously during a golden era for that club? Do you feel like that was a key component into this selection?
I definitely agree. Kingsley has been linked to just about every coaching position over the last couple of years, so it was inevitable that he would get his shot, and I definitely think he's deserved it. He was there at Richmond, during that dominant dynasty period, right? He's learnt from one of the best coaches of the modern era in Damien Hardwick, and I really think he can use what he's learned there, but also do his own thing. And I think it's also important to note that the Giants also have a few new assistants as well. So that new fresh approach will be very good for the Giants this year, because they are really starting from ground zero. And I think it's really good to have fresh approaches across the board when you're starting from ground zero, as I said.
JT, do you feel like the selection was based purely on resume or based on what he could bench? Because Adam Kingsley is one of the biggest built coaches I've ever seen.
I think I sent a photo the other day. That man is built like an absolute brick shed. He is huge. But it looks wise. He's definitely got the looks for it. But it's also, like we've been saying, he's got the experience. It's like that assistant coach thing that you can there's sort of two different ways you're going to get coaches. You either get an old sacked coach or an old left coach that has proven experience at the top level. You're looking at Ross Lyon and you're looking at Clarko. But then there's those ones where you try and bring in from the assistant coaches and the ones that have been in the system for so long. He's very much like Adam Uze, who Adam Uze obviously didn't get the job this year, but he was another coach that's had his name thrown into literally every single coaching role in the entire league. So everyone knows what they can do, and he's obviously, because he's been thrown around so much and because he's been considered so much, that he's obviously got the talent for it, and obviously everyone is well aware of his coaching.
Comes to Adam Kingsley, I'm pretty sure I've heard a rumor he does one rep of the bench press for every job he missed out on.
It drinks a carton of milk too.
That's no bone breaks there.
All right, well, that's obviously it's good discussion points. I really feel like GWS are going to be one team to watch in 2023. Whether or not they make a big improvement, bigger than probably they expect, it's wait and see on that. But we'll go through a bit of a questionnaire to really discover what GWS are capable of in 2023. And I'll start with Jacko. How do you judge GWS's pre-season?
I think I've touched on it a few times. I really liked it. I think this is the right move for the Giants. I feel like they stuck with Leon Cameron too long after that grand final loss. I just think Adam Kingsley's the right man for the job. He's going to get him working as one unit. He's going to get a mosquito fleet of people running forward, an orange wave, if you will. And I think we're going to see some really exciting football this year. They might not win a lot of games, but it's going to be exciting.
Definitely. Thomas Grattan, you're an absolute maniac when it comes to fantasy and Supercoach, mate. Have you got one pick that people must select for their team from GWS this year?
I'm a big fan of Tom Green, to be perfectly honest. I feel with Hopper and Taranto having departed, I feel like he'll be able to shoulder a heavier load in the midfield, and he's been steadily growing since his debut for the Giants. He finished runner up in his Rising Star year, and had a very solid year, like one of the few players that I believe was consistent from start to finish for the Giants last year. And I really think he can go to another level and become a very handy addition to your fantasy / supercoach team.
I'll go around the room with that one because I feel like we're all going to be avid selectors. JT, who are you selecting from GWS in your team?
I was tempted to go Canelio because I've picked him every year, but last year he absolutely burnt the absolute butt off me. So I'm gonna go with Toby Green this year purely because I think he's probably gonna play up the ground a little bit more. And he's always sort of a smoky for kicking 7 if he gets a chance. So I think Toby Green is one that if you put him in your forward line, and like last year, forward selections are always a little bit dicey. You never really know who to pick in the forward line. I think Toby Green's a good one because he can get you 20 touches and he can get you 7 goals.
Jacko?
I respect these other two, but Stephen Canelio is the only man you're picking from the Giants this season. I'm not sure. I'm a fantasy man myself, so I'm not sure about Supercoach. You can pick Cogs as a forward. He's, as JT's just said, you can't really be sure of forwards this year, but you can be sure of Stephen Canelio. They need someone in that midfield, and he's going to be the one.
All right. JT, I'll go to you for this next question. What's one change that needs to be made for GWS this year?
It kind of pains me to say because he used to be one of my favorite players in the league, but they have to figure out what to do with Lachie Whitfield. Last year he had a really down year, and it seems to be a way at the Giants where one of their superstars has a year where they just kind of don't do anything. Canelio had that year when he was captain and he got dropped. It was one of the biggest sort of news stories, and I think last year Whitfield was really, really down on his output. I'm not sure his exact stats, but he wasn't having the impact on games he was in the other years. So they need to figure out whether or not he's a midfielder, whether or not he's a winger or a halfback. I think personally he's best off the halfback. That's his go. That's his bread and butter. And they've got to figure out the way to sort of get him involved in games more and get him leading a certain area. Because I think last year he just didn't have anywhere near the year as he was expecting or anyone was expecting.
Grattan, what are you most excited for GWS 2023?
It has to be Aaron Cadman. I mean, this guy is one of the most highly rated in this year's draft, and would have gone number 1 if not for Will Ashcroft, as we've touched on earlier. I was actually quite surprised that North Melbourne decided to trade away to pick 1, allowing the Giants to swoop, because I figured it was, in my opinion at least, it was a given that Cadman was going to go pick 1, and a tall forward would be exactly what North Melbourne would need. However, their loss may turn out to be the Giants' gain. They get a ready-made forward prospect. That'll be very, very important for them going forward. And yeah, I think it'll be very good to see Aaron Cadman in action.
Jacko, we talk about excitement, we talk about changes. Who has to have a big year for GWS this year?
He had a big year last year, but it has to be Sam Taylor again. That kid is one of my favourite players to watch in this league. He's so young.
Agreed.
He made his first All-Australian last year. They're going to, as we've touched, they're not going to be a great team. They're going to lose games. To minimise those losses, Sam Taylor is going to need to be huge again. I'll put it on the record right here. He's going to make the All-Australian team again in 2023. He is that good, and he's only getting better.
Grattan, who's going to have a breakout year in 2023 for GWS?
I like the look of James Peatling for the Giants to break out this year. He had a very solid purple patch mid-year. He had kicked 3 goals 3 weeks in a row before, unfortunately, doing a hamstring against the Giants in round 14. But that's the type of thing we've got on display there. And I reckon if with another preseason under his belt and hopefully no injuries this time around, I really think he can settle in and become a best 22 player for the Giants in 2023.
All right, let's go around the room. It's a headline you'll see. Jacko, we'll start with you.
I gave mine away just before. Sorry, Ant. I've got Sammy Taylor with his second All-Australian in 2023.
JT, what's your headline?
I had one in my head, but I'm going to go even higher. Toby Green will kick 9 in a game. He's going to kick 9. We haven't had a massive bag in a really long time, it feels like. He's kicked a few over time. So I think I think one game he's just gonna get really pissed.
Do
It'll
you
be at
believe this
Marvel.
yourself?
Yes, I do. It'll be really pissed. It'll be at Marvel. It'll be against St Kilda, and he'll kick 9, and they'll just shush us all, and it won't matter. So
I love that it's St Kilda.
it'll always be against us. He dominates against us. He'll kick 9, or if maybe not 8. He might kick 8. Either of the two.
I love how
Can
he's
we
not
clarify
getting
he's
the
a
10.
Saints fan?
I'm not just ragging on the Saints for no reason.
Grattan, what's your headline? You'll see.
I reckon the Stephen Cornelia renaissance will be officially complete with his return to the All-Australian team in 2023.
Thank God you three aren't writing headlines, because seriously, they are very debatably not even going to make it to the run sheet. Anyway,
Mine was the Twitter advocate headline.
Touche. We'll go around the room again because I feel like this will have very different opinions. A must-watch game for GWS in 2023 on the calendar. JT, you can start.
I think one that's sort of a must-watch for them every year is it's sort of one of their, they've got the Sydney Derby, but it's one of their only rivalries that's been sort of purely built out of spite and out of games, and that's against the Dogs. They have those battles back in 2016 in the finals, and they were obviously amazing. And each year there's always a bit of fire in those games. So, against the Doggies who I think will still be good, and the Giants might not be as good as them, but it's always a way with those two teams. They're going to be right at each other's throats all day. So, yeah, that game's definitely one to watch.
Jacko, what's your one to watch this year?
Yeah, as a Sydney fan, I'd really like to say the Sydney Derby, but I just can't get behind it. I'm going to have to agree with JT. It's the Giants and the Bulldogs. For me, it's one of the top 5 clashes in the competition. It's just up there. No matter what, you've just got to turn that game on and watch it.
And Grattan, what's your one to watch this year?
Speak for yourselves, boys. The Sydney Derby is always a big one for me, and I think this one will have a bit of fire behind it because Sydney essentially tore the Giants apart in their last meeting by about 12 goals, and infamously, caretaker coach Mark McVeigh tore ribbons off the Giants in his post-match press conference, and I really think that message will burn with those who are out in the field when the Swans and Giants meet up. They'll have a point to prove, and I also feel as if it doesn't matter where they are, a Swans Giants game will always have a lot of energy, a lot of heart, and a lot of unexpected events as well.
Jacko, you can answer this one and answer this one only because I really want to know what you think. What is the minimum expectation for GWS in 2023?
I'd hate to bore you, mate, but I'm going to bring stats into this one. GWS lost 2 contested possession beasts in Timmy Taranto and Jacob Hopper. When a team loses the contested possession count, 73% of the time they go on to lose the game. I just can't see them winning too many contested possession counts. They can be as fast running and firing as they want. They just can't. I don't think they're going to be able to get in and under. I think their minimum expectation is they can't look too high. They've just got to avoid the wooden spoon this season.
That's stats brought to you by the Inner Sanctum. You won't find that in any other AFL preview going around on YouTube right now, including other things that I won't mention on this one. We'll go around the table for the ladder predictions for this year. JT, I can see you smiling, mate. Where are you predicting GWS to finish in 2023?
I'm just smiling because it looks like we found the identity of Sir Swamp Thing. I don't know. I think
you called me.
Yeah, I don't know. The Giants, like I said, I don't think they're going to be amazing. It's a bit of a rebuild. I don't think they're going to be with a wooden spoon. I think there's some teams that are definitely going to be worse than them, but I'm going to say they're going to finish about 15th-ish. I don't think they're going to finish much higher than that. Because I still think they've got talent on their list. We've spoken about Cornelio, Toby Green, Whitfield, all those, Sam Taylor, those guys that are still very good. So I think they're going to be about 15th, not much higher, not much lower.
I love how you've said 15th-ish, but they won't go any higher or lower. It'd be like 15th and a half. That's a really pinpoint accuracy, that one.
So we've got one guy that does stats, and then me that's 15-ish.
I reckon GWS will finish around the 13th to 14th mark. I mean, like as JT said, I think there are worse teams, but I think they'll be worse in the sense that they're young, not as other teams, not in the same boat as other teams will be. So I reckon 13th is probably the highest I can see at this point them finishing this year.
I just absolutely love that this question asks where will they finish, and I'm getting variances. It's fantastic. Jacko, bring us home. Give me an exact position of where GWS are finishing this year.
They're not getting any better. They finished 16th last season. They're not getting any better. I'm going to lock in 16th because I can't. North Melbourne aren't going to be better than them. I think West Coast are still down there as well. So I think they're going to finish 16th, and 16th is where they'll stay.
I love that. Thank you. Well, I think after all of that, we've considered that GWS won't be a powerhouse this year, but overall they're going to have a massive improvement. Adam Kingsley at the helm, a few good talents to come, and it's going to be absolutely amazing to see what they can produce this year. I'm going to thank Jacko, Grattan, JT for joining me for this preview. You can check out all of their amazing stuff on the Inner Sanctum and plenty more to come throughout the time. Boys, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having us, Anthony. Love
No
to be
worries.
Thank you very much for watching this AFL preview on the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to plenty more content coming your way and plenty of other AFL previews on the channel as well. Make sure you check them out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I said that already. We'll see you next time.
Subscribe